Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all having a wonderful day today. Today we're going to be talking about a couple flashlights, and I wanted to get some housekeeping out of the way beforehand, so this section is going to be a little long, so I'm going to have the lists and times of all the stuff in the future of this video, so if you want to go ahead and skip around, you can absolutely do that. However, I just do want to get some stuff out of the way. First thing that I want to do is thank the sponsor of the video, which is Gun Deals. Gun Deals, if you guys don't know, is basically a website that compiles the best deals in the industry. They don't buy or sell anything, and they've been financially supporting me, and I've been making exclusive videos for them over there on their channel, so you can check out their channel if you'd like. But basically they just provide you with links to the best deals in the industry. So whatever it is that you're looking for, whether it's a red dot or ammo or something like that, go ahead and check out their website, and they probably have it for the best deal. On top of that, if you'd like to help me out personally, you can of course like, share, and subscribe, because all that sort of stuff is free. Go ahead and leave a snarky comment down below on one of the lights if you don't mind. And on top of that, I also make AR-500 steel targets, so if you want to go ahead and buy one of those from me, and you can shoot it and make the happy noises. And on top of that, there's Subscribestar, which is basically just a pro to a Patreon where you send me some cash every month, and I send you some extra content and get you entered in monthly giveaways, though I am a couple months behind right now. Now, with all of that out of the way, today we're going to be talking about the Olight Odin, which is a very, very high performance light. And by high performance, I mean one of the highest performance lights on the market. But before we really talk about anything like that, I do want to talk about the lights, how I came about them, both the Olight Odin and the Streamlight HLX, which is what we're going to call it. I know the actual name is Protac Rail Mount HLX, which is way too long, so I'm just going to call it the Streamlight HLX. Now, Olight did send these lights out to me. Back, I want to say a little bit over a year ago, I did a video for them on the Balder Mini when it had just come out, which is a fairly cool little compact little light for like a micro Glock or something like that. Then a couple months ago, Eunice, who's my contact there, reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to review the Olight Odin. Now, at the time, he wanted me to put out the video in about a week or so time, because they like to time their videos with their sales that go on, which we'll get into that in just a minute. But basically I just told them no, because I don't do reviews that fast, and they said that was fine. So they said, oh, you know, maybe next month or so. So I've had these lights, both of the Odins, because they accidentally sent me 2 Odins instead of 1 Odin. So I've been testing 2 Odins, one of which I'm planning on keeping, and the other one I'm planning on sending to one of my Subscribestar guys. So they did send me 2 Odins. So since I've got them for about 2 months now, I've been testing them on a bunch of different guns, 12 gauge shotguns, 5.56 ARs, 7.62x39 ARs, and probably something else in there as well. Now the Streamlights, on the other hand, the Streamlight HLX as we're going to call it, the Streamlights I paid for with my own money. So I bought 2 of them. One of them I bought from Optics Planet about the same time, about 2 months ago, and the other one I bought from eBay a couple weeks after that. So I've had both of those for quite some time as well. So if you guys go back and look at videos over the last couple months, you will see every single gun I shoot either has a Streamlight on it or has the Olight Odin on it, because I wanted to pack as much testing as I possibly could into one light review, or actually a double light review, as this is going to turn out to be. Now let's go ahead and talk about the elephant in the room, which is of course Olight itself. Now Olight as a company, it is a Chinese owned company. And these lights are manufactured in China. I believe the Streamlight HLX, which Streamlight is of course a US company, but the lights are still manufactured in China. Now to some people that will be a big deal, to some people that will be not a big deal. Some people are interested in the political aspects of that, which is a fine thing to be interested in, and some people merely want the best value that they can get. So I am not going to be the arbiter of morality for you, as if the YouTube algorithm or the YouTube analytics are to be believed, my audience has an average age of about 30 years old, and they're 101% male. So you definitely are an adult and can make your own decision. Now on top of that, Olight pushes their stuff very, very hard. They're a company trying to make money, and so they do that very, very aggressively. And now one of the ways that they push them so hard, and their influencers and their reviewers or shills or whatever you want to call them, push their lights so hard, is because they make a lot of money off of commission through their affiliate links. Now, I've had their affiliate links in the descriptions of my videos before, and I've never really pushed them at all because I don't need your money. I run my own company, and if you want to actually help me out financially, you can join my Subscribe Star. You get some extra content. You can buy my steel targets. That's how I would prefer to make money from you guys. If I can provide you guys with something of value, then you guys can throw me some cash. So that being said, I'm not putting any Olight affiliate links on this video because I don't want that to poison the proverbial well in terms of my opinion. Also because I don't need their money, and I definitely don't need your money either. Online, there's basically two communities of people who either love their products absolutely and rep their products, one because some influencer that they like push their product, or because they get paid a lot of money to say nice things about it, and so they do a sale video every time there's a sale, all that sort of fun stuff. And then the other camp of people is people who have heard rumors online, who have never used an Olight and who absolutely hate them for a variety of reasons. Again, I'm not going to get into all of that stuff too much, and you guys are, again, adults, and you guys can make your own decisions as far as that goes. But almost all of the information that is online concerning these lights is basically garbage. So what I'm hoping to try and do with this video is to hopefully put out a good information source through the old adage of show, don't tell. And again, I'll have already put up links to times that you can skip to if you don't want to listen to me talk, because there is unfortunately going to be a lot of talking in this video. It's going to be quite a long one, I believe. So we have a lot of testing to go through, all that other sort of fun stuff. But again, my intent with this video is, again, I'm not interested in making money for Olight. I'm not interested in taking Olight's money or your money vicariously through Olight. And on top of that, I don't hate their products. I don't have anything against their products whatsoever. I did a good bit of research, unfortunately, before this video, looking into the supposed blow-ups of Olights and burnings of Olights and stuff like that. And most of what I found were some very obscure posts with hundreds and hundreds of comments on them of people just arguing back and forth how much they love Olight, how good Olight is, and how bad Olight is, and how terrible they are, and all sorts of crazy stuff that you will see in comment sections on the internet. Now, as far as actual pictures and other things that I could actually find, like real visible evidence of an Olight blowing up, I could find only a couple pictures, and by a couple, I mean 2 pictures of one blowing up, or 2 of them blowing up or kind of melting down. None of the ones that I saw actually blew up, they more just melted down. Most of that, online theorists were saying it was mostly due to batteries. They were all CR123A devices. So the problem with that, and a lot of times when you have a failure with a flashlight, it's going to be the power source, just because that's generally how it goes, especially in some of these very high performance lights, where this one here has a custom cell in it that is designed for this flashlight and this flashlight alone, which helps it to get some of that performance out of it. And when you start mixing and matching old crappy batteries and putting them into a high performance scenario, eventually some of them are going to blow up. In fact, if you just Google flashlights blowing up, about 5 out of the first 10 were actually Surefire lights. Now, that kind of leads into something else that we're going to talk about. I'm only going to be talking about the Streamlight HLX, this guy right here, and the Olight Odin, because that is what I have experience shooting. So there are basically 4 other big brand names that I'm not really going to talk about at all. Surefire, Arasaka, Modlight, and what's the other one? They do the Owl, what's it, Cloud Defensive. So those 4 guys I'm not really going to be talking about because I have 0 or next to 0 experience with them. With Surefire, I've used their G2Xs as more of a home defense style light for quite some time, and they actually work really well as the most budget kind of home defense weapon mounted light. They do work really well for that, but all the other high-end, super high performance type stuff that's on the market, I'm not really going to talk about because I'm only comparing, again, these 2 lights. So this is a very truncated, very focused video, no pun intended, on a couple of products, comparing them back and forth. What are their strengths, weaknesses? What do they do good at? What are they bad at? When we're talking about value, again, both of these lights come with everything you need for under $200. The Olight's about $160. The Streamlight's about $110 to $130, though you have to buy its specific battery pack that does not come with it, which is a little obnoxious. Well, again, we'll get into all of this sort of stuff. So with all of that out of the way, again, I'm not going to try to convince you that this light is good or bad based upon my personal opinions. I'm going to hopefully let a lot of the video speak for itself in terms of its value, its performance, how it held up to some of the durability tests that we put it through. It of course did not melt down because we're done with testing and it's still here. I actually have both of these that are still on guns. Both of my Streamlights are still on guns, so spoiler alert, it didn't blow up on me and it did pass all the tests that I put it through. So with all of that set up and quote-unquote housekeeping out of the way, now let's go ahead and actually get into the lights themselves. Alrighty, so with all of that finally out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about what these lights come with, construction, and some other basic features. So go over some of the basic specs of the light. So we're going to go ahead and start out with the Odin and some of the stuff that it comes with and how to use it, that sort of thing, just because we want to focus mainly on the Odin and then use the Streamlight HLX as kind of a comparison because, of course, nature does abhor vacuum. So the Olight Odin retails for $160, though again, I didn't pay for any of the stuff. Olight did send that stuff out to me, so just keep that in mind. These retail for $160 and they come with, of course, the light itself and the very, very beefy 21700 customized battery. Now I like the fact that it's a customized battery because of course that means that they can kind of tune it to the light itself, but it is a very, very large battery. I don't think Olight actually manufactures the battery. The battery is most likely manufactured for Olight for another company or from another company. So comparing that to the Streamlight Protac rail mount HLX, which I'm just going to refer to as the Streamlight HLX, these retail anywhere from $100 on a really good deal all the way up to like $115, $120. I've seen them listed for like $160, $170. I would absolutely not pay that because most retailers have them for the low $100 mark. I bought this one, I believe, from Optics Planet. I bought it for $110 on sale, which is a pretty good price. And then the second one that I bought, because I bought both my Streamlights to kind of compare against the two Odins that were sent out to me. The other one I actually bought from eBay for $90, so that was actually a good steal. And they seem to actually have a bunch of them on there for around $90 to $100. I wouldn't buy any of the ones that are like $50, $60 because those are most likely knockoffs, but on the low end about $90 up to $110, $115, somewhere in that range. Now that being said, they come with CR123As because this is technically a dual fuel light. However, Streamlight does manufacture, again, have somebody else manufacture for them their own, I believe they call it BSL 26, which is their micro USB rechargeable battery cell that's optimized for these Streamlight lights. Now, that's nice and all. However, these batteries cost about 20 bucks by themselves. Maybe if you buy them in a multi-pack, they cost about, you know, 10, 15 bucks each. But that does bring the actual cost of this light to about $110 to $130-ish. So they are a good difference in price, you know. Depending if you actually go with the BSL 26, which I do recommend, because if you're using CR123As, you actually don't get the full 1000 lumen output, so you actually need their specific battery module to get that full output. And again, you want it anyways. It's going to give you more milliamp hours. It's going to give you more power, of course, and probably last for a longer time. On top of that, it is USB rechargeable, so that is a good feature. Now, of course, the power between these two lights is quite a bit different. The Odin is rated at 2000 lumens, which I absolutely believe it is just a wall of light. In terms of light output, it is just immense, I would say. The Streamlight is rated at 1000 lumens. However, that's not the entire story. So you would think this light would be twice as bright. While that is theoretically true that it does have twice the total light output, the candela on the Olight is, I believe, 22.5. And the candela on the Protac HLX is like 26. So what that means is lumens is basically, just in layman's terms, lumens is the total light output. So this does have 2000 lumens of total light output. However, the candela is the light measured at its hottest point. So in practice, this actually has a much, or I shouldn't say much, it has a slight advantage in terms of brightness in a specific point. However, this just does put out a lot more light. We'll get into what that means later on, but the light output is more comparable than you would think, at least on paper, though I will say, in general use, the Odin is going to be brighter in 99% of use case scenarios and brighter by a large margin. Now, getting on to some other features, the Odin has some very interesting, unique stuff going on with it. So it uses a magnetic charger that just flips onto the bottom and charges through the rear tail cap. I should mention that the body here, this is IPX8 certified, which I believe is 33 feet for an hour. So you could go diving with this guy if you really wanted to, which is pretty cool in my opinion. Don't know why you would, but you could. And has, of course, the magnetic push-to-lock tail cap. What that means is that, one, it's magnetic, so it holds on by that force, but also when you push forward, you actually have detents that lock in place on the rear of the light, so then it cannot be removed, and you can put, you know, 15-20 pounds of force on it without it coming off. The only time that I've ever seen one of these tail caps come off was actually on Mr. Guns and Gear channel, and he was doing full auto with 762x39, and that just reciprocating force was enough to just work the detents loose, and it came right off. I believe they improved the design after that, and again, in my experience, I have not had any problems with the tail cap or the tail switch in general. Just to go over the tail switch, with the tail switch off, you have two modes. So you have low, which is 300 lumens, which is great for navigation, getting around, close range identification, that sort of thing. And then if you do a deep press, it is 2000 lumens, which is of course an immense amount of light. Now, of course, if you push and click, you should be able to get it on constantly, and if you hold for any matter of time, it will just turn off when you release the pressure. With the light switch or the tail switch attached, you don't have that low mode, so all you have is high, which is good. That's all I want with the tail switch, because I have it mounted to a weapon at that point, and I want it to give me all of the juice all of the time. So it has, of course, momentary, but if you just tiny tap it, it will go on, and then just tap it again to turn it off. Once or twice, and this is more of a me thing, I have done it really short for like a quarter second or less actually, and it has remained on because of course it went into its on-off mode instead of its momentary mode. So you do have to kind of be cognizant of that. If you just do a really tiny quick tap, it is just going to turn the light on, and then you have to tap it again to actually turn it off. Now the tail cap, the nice thing about it is that they are coming out with the Odin Turbo. We're not really going to talk about it much, as I haven't really talked about it, but everything is universal on it, so you can switch the tail caps over to something else if need be. Now that also translates to the mount, which the mount is a standard Picatinny mount. They do also make an M-LOK mount, however, I'm not really going to talk about it because I haven't tried it at all. However, the Picatinny mount is very, very good for a couple reasons. One, it has an integrated recoil lug, which I quite like. It's a feature that not a lot of other light mounts have, but again, I like to see it. Its tensioning method is via 2 Allen screws on this very wide piece of aluminum here. This is all 6061 aluminum, or they say 6000 series aluminum. Same with the Streamlight HLX, both 6000 series aluminum. But the mount gives a very, very secure hold on whatever sort of Picatinny rail you put it on. On top of that, I have had some compatibility issue with the stock Streamlight mount, which it does of course come with, but I've had some Picatinny that's just a little out of spec, and the Streamlight will not be able to tighten down enough on it. But the Olight, their mount actually has a little bit wider compatibility just in its range of what sort of Picatinny it can fit. So if you have a Picatinny that's a little bit out of spec one way or the other, like I have some really cheap like polymer stuff that I have laying around that's a little out of spec, this mount will actually work a lot better than the Streamlight. Now, all that being said, the mounting system is another one of those really kind of interesting, unique features. So simply slide in place, and it kind of locks in place with a detent, and then it's not moving. And then simply press down on this button on the side, it pops right out. You can do it in a variety of ways because it does have 2 slots on the mount itself. So you can mount it forwards, you can mount it backwards. So however you want it to fit on here, it's going to fit on there. Now, on top of that, if you want to actually lock it in place, because of course right now it won't, but if you accidentally bumped the button at the same time something was pulling on it, it would come out. If you don't want it to do that, simply have it in place, locked in place, twist the knob to the side, and now you can't press the button and it won't move at all. So, really interesting mount that's very, very versatile in how you want to mount it. It's incredibly quick and easy and fast, and it kind of makes sense when you think about the way that they have the charging is USB charging, so it has a USB to a magnetic cap on the bottom, and so you can just take the mount off, hook it up to its charger, and then forget about it for a couple hours, come back, and then just slide it right onto your rail, in about 2 seconds. Now, I don't know why you would ever necessarily want to do this, but you totally could. So here's the Odin Turbo that we just talked about a second ago. So we are going to go ahead and put both of these on here. And now you have both lights hooked up to a single mount. So you could, for whatever reason, if you had it mounted onto the side here, you could be running your tail switch on the turbo and then running your thumb to index the Odin itself, and then, you know, you have your crazy high candela light on the side for whatever reason. And if they came out with some sort of like IR light or IR light plus laser unit that uses the same mounting thing, you could of course just very easily work it in. So to show you what that would look like on a gun, so here is a Bear Creek Arsenal 10.5 side charging the Gen 2. So if I wanted to here, I could probably see if it'll work on this mount. It does just fine. And then again, because the tail caps are all universal, I'm just going to throw the tail cap on that one. So now my pressure pad is going to be on the Odin Turbo, and then my push button, if I just want to reach over with my thumb, is going to be on the Odin itself. So lots of different ways you could run this. And theoretically, if they do come out with some cool IR lights or something like that, it could be an option for people running nods or stuff like that. And last thing to mention on the Odin is that it does mount straight to your PICATINNY, so the actual tail switch itself has these really nice rubber kind of plasticky feeling thing that kind of just bends over top your PICATINNY, so it's super easy to take on and off, although not easy enough that it's going to fly off on you. But if you wanted to secure it even more, you could either zip tie or add some 3M electrical tape, and that goes for both of these tail switches that we're going to talk about. Now, as you can see on here, the fitment to the top of the rail is very, very tight, which I like that. But if for whatever reason that was too tight and I didn't like it there, I could obviously just switch it over to the side, and now I have a lot more clearance on top, just depending on what I'm doing. So you have, again, an immense amount of versatility within one mount, and it's again very quick to switch, and you can then just lock it in place and then it's never going to move. And even in the very tight configuration up on top, it is still able to clear my very chunky suppressor, which of course actually all of the night shooting was done suppressed with these lights. So then moving back over to the Streamlight HLX, it does of course have an integrated mount. I believe it can be switched out. I might be wrong about that, but it works with PICATINNY, so it's very, very modular in that. Lots of people have PICATINNY laying around, though if you are running a completely slick rail, like, you know, anything that's M-LOK or KeyMod, you are going to need some additional PICATINNY on there, because you probably don't want to run it on top, just because again it is a little bit tall. Now it does come with both a standard push button tail cap, which is just fine, not perfect, but it's just fine. It's not super tactile, but it does work. Sometimes you'll get a full press before the light actually turns on, and then the light's on, you have to double click it. If you do manage to double click it, which can sometimes happen, if I can get it to do it, there it goes, it can go into strobe mode. So again, the standard rear button is fine, not perfect though. I should mention that this light is with the rear tail cap, just the tail cap, is IPX7 certified, which is 3 feet for a half hour, which is pretty good. However, when you put on this tail cap, because it does change the lockup a little bit, because then you have this little tail piece here that kind of rotates around a little bit. It then goes from IPX7 all the way down to IPX4, which is basically just splash resistant at that point, so not really all that great. But talking about the tail switch itself, it's fairly tactile. I haven't had too many problems with it. If you get to the very edge, it can be a little bit difficult. You have to press really, really deeply to get the light to actually turn on. So in terms of tail switches, the Odin's is actually better. Neither of them are perfect, but of course they are the ones that come with it, and you're not spending, you know, $200–300 on a tail switch like you would with some other brands. That being said, so again, you have the double mode, so if you double tap it, it will go into strobe mode. You have your on-off button in the back, so just push and it'll turn it on. And the nice thing that I like about it, I wish it didn't have the strobe mode, but one of the things that I do like about it is that this front button place is only momentary. So no matter how fast I touch it, it's only momentary. Now, one thing that I will say is that this is very easy to get on and off of PICATINNY. Again, not too easy that it's going to come off on you when you don't want it. The Streamlights is a little bit more obnoxious. So it uses these little rubber pieces, these little rubber kind of grommets that again kind of lock into your PICATINNY rail section. And then once you get them down in place, then you have to get your tail switch and then kind of feed it through to make sure that it's tight. So that can be a little bit obnoxious. And again, if you want extra security, Either just some 3M electrical tape or zip ties are going to hold those down really well. As you can see on here, I just have my extra wire, just because there is a little bit of extra wire, just taped down with some 3M electrical tape. Cost me about 2 cents and it's good to go. And so up on here I have my tail switch mounted all the way forward. This is the BCA 11.5 that we just reviewed. So top button gives me momentary all I want. If I need to turn it on constantly for whatever reason, come back, just press the button. So in terms of tightness to the rail, obviously the Olight can get a lot tighter, and like I said, this mount is not quite as compatible with lots of different polymers. So if you have a lot of different PICATINNY slots that are maybe in, or PICATINNY rail sections that are maybe in spec, maybe not in spec, you might have a little bit more compatibility issue with this mount. On top of that, this mount has been exceptional in terms of holding the light and retaining its place, whereas these mounts have walked loose on 3 different guns. So these mounts with an Olight Odin on them have held up to about 300 rounds of 12 gauge shotgun, and they've held in place. They have not shifted, have not come loose whatsoever. These, however, I've had 2 of them come loose on 5.56 guns and on a 7.62x39 AR upper receiver. So if you're going to use the stock mounts, which you might have to, because I'm not sure if they make aftermarket mounts for the Streamlight HLXs, but if you are going to use it, I absolutely recommend you get some blue Loctite and then Loctite your screw that threads down onto it to hold them in place. And the reason for that is the mount design just is not quite as good. It's just not as good as holding steady, so you're going to need to add some additional Loctite to it. The reason is the lockup is a much smaller area. On top of that, it's only 1 screw. It's a very large screw, but there's also nothing holding this piece aligned, so it kind of moves back and forth on its own. It's not locked in place by anything other than this, again, single tension point on a single screw with a smaller surface area. So it's just, the mount design is just not as functional, not as flexible, and not as strong as the Odin. And again, there is a slight price difference here, so in terms of value, they're very similar in value, but again, I just want to say that the Odin mount is objectively much better. So that about does it for features, what they're made of, how they interface, what they hook up to, some of the mounting options for them, the tail switches. That's kind of all the basic rundown stuff. Now let's go ahead and get into the testing. Now, as I mentioned, I've had 2 Streamlights and 2 Odins. Again, they did send out both Odins. I will be giving away one of the Odins to one of my Subscribestar members, so if you guys want to hop on there, I will be sending one of those out to them. So now I've had these lights for a couple months now, and basically I believe every single gun that I've shot, every video that you've seen me shooting for the last 2 months, I've had these lights on my gun. So for the Odins, we're looking at probably 2,000+ rounds, and then probably another 2,000 rounds on the Streamlights as well. On top of that, I had this specific Odin, which is losing its paint on the front end just because it sits next to muzzle devices all of the time, is losing its paint on the front end, which is fine. I also ran this guy on a 12 gauge shotgun for about 300-ish rounds, mostly 3-inch birdshot, although there was also some 2 3/4 double-aught buck, slug, some 2 3/4-inch birdshot, but because the shotgun doesn't like it all that much, mostly I was just sticking with the hotter stuff. Again, never had issues with the light, with the mount, with the tail switch, anything throughout that 12 gauge cycle that I was using it on, and I will probably be using it on a 12 gauge in the future when I do that review for the main channel. So on top of about 4,000 to 5,000 rounds combined over all of the lights, on top of that I also did drop tests with just the light body. So I would take the light and drop it onto one of my AR500 steel targets from shoulder height or head height. Did that a couple times, and then on top of that I hooked it up to the actual gun itself as it would be set up, and then dropped that from shoulder height a couple times onto my AR500 steel targets, and neither of the lights exhibited any issues. The reason for that is because both of these lights are going to be very, very tanky, because they are, even though they're large lights, they're fairly small, compact pieces of very tough aluminum. Now, aluminum sometimes can get a little bit of a bad rap for not being very strong, because you can see like, oh, rails bend and stuff like that. However, rails are quite large and quite long, so there's a lot more room for you to engage leverage against them to where they can bend. However, in a small compact package like this, they are going to be very, very difficult for you to damage. So in terms of just raw durability, they're both going to be very, very good. Recoil is probably never going to be an issue for them as long as the internal spring still works and still holds that good connection in place. I don't really think you're ever going to have an issue. Maybe if you hooked them up to some crazy caliber like 50 BMG or something like that, you could see some flickering or something like that, but you're not going to be shooting fast enough to notice that anyways. But as long as the internal spring can hold them in place, you're really never going to damage the battery, or sorry, damage the actual body of the light. You could drive over these things and the rail would bend much before the light would, because again, this is a much smaller, more compact, tough package, and the Olight is even smaller and more compact. So again, that compactness, that structural durability, combined with the fact that it is high strength aluminum, you're really never going to encounter an issue with the lights unless you're doing something absolutely crazy. Because of course you could take a sledgehammer and pound these lights into pancakes, but I have a hard time figuring out a real world circumstance where something could go catastrophically wrong to actually hurt the lights themselves, short of like they get shot or something like that. And it should be no surprise to anyone that the biggest problem with these lights is going to be their batteries. Now, all high performance lights, and these are both high performance lights, anytime you get in the 1000+ lumens, you're dealing with a lot of power, a lot of heat as well, you're going to run into battery issues. Now, the nice thing about the Olight is it comes with a purportedly very, very high quality 21700 that is customized for the light. Now, a lot of problems with flashlights that I've seen in my very limited research have been from bad batteries, and specifically CR123As, which, since this is a dual fuel, you could technically use it with a CR123A or two CR123As. However, Streamlight does have, again, their optimized, I think it's BSL 26 or whatever they call it, battery that works really, really well for these lights and allows them to get their full 1000 lumen output. However, if you, for whatever reason, are just using CR123s or just a stock 18650 battery, you may or may not be getting your full power, and you may or may not be using a light that's designed for a high output, high drain sort of thing. So I do like I am using customized lights in both of them, so I do like that quite a bit, that they're actually tuned specifically for the lights that they're in. Now, that being said, these are both high performance lights. They both are very, very high power. However, one of them does a good job with heat dispersion and the other one does not. And that should be very, very easy for you guys to figure out. For instance, the Odin has about half of the surface area and twice the power output of the Streamlight. Now, the Streamlight, if you look on it, has this really big head, so there's lots of surface area on top, and on top of that it also has these venting ribs that go around it, so that also further increases the surface area. On top of that, it's 1000 lumens versus 2000 lumens. Because of course both of these lights are just passively cooled, so they use the air to transfer heat away from the body, and of course the more surface area you give a light, the faster it can do that. So they don't really have any heat vents or anything on here to increase the surface area to, of course, increase the cooling. And when you double the power output like that, you are going to get quite a bit more heat. So I know that it is a meme online that having an Olight on your gun will turn it into a unregistered IED, which of course can land you in some serious legal troubles, but in my specific case, that was of course not the case. So now let's go ahead and talk about a very simple test that I did, because I wanted to see if these lights were going to melt down on me, and of course they didn't, because they're still here and I still have all of them. So basically I lined up all 4 lights. I lined up the Streamlight HLX, one with the BSL 26, so their specific battery pack, and one with just a standard 2200 milliamp hour 18650, and then both of the Odins. Both of them were, of course, or I should say all 4 lights on their rechargeable batteries were fully charged. Now, if we just turn them on right now and show you guys, jump to the footage, as I said before, if you take half the mass away or half the surface area away and double the power output, you're going to get a lot of heat. So the Odin does heat up quite quickly, and because of its high heat and high performance light design, both of their high performance light designs, they're both designed with safety features to step down the light so that it doesn't just melt down or blow up in your face. At least that is the intent. So the Odin on their website, on Olight's website, says that in like normal-ish conditions, it'll go from 2000 lumens, and then after a constant 2-minute on, it will go down to 1000 lumens. So after its first very, very hot 2000 lumen period, it will go down to 1000 lumens as a step down safety feature to kind of slow down that heat buildup, because it is going to get very, very hot. The Streamlight also has a step down feature as well. However, it's going to have its step down feature at about the same time that the Odin has its second step down, because of course after the first couple minutes they're both going to perform very similar in terms of total light output. However, the Streamlight will maintain its long punch, its 26,000-ish candela, for much longer than the Streamlight, than the Olight Odin will maintain its 22.5. So I do want to say this and make this very, very clear. In actually shooting these for multiple range outings, I never got either light to step down. And I want to say that again. In real world, actual being on the range, or you know, wherever I'm shooting for a couple hours at a time during the dark, I never got either of these lights to step down. However, if you just sit there and leave them on, whether it's accidental or something like that, because again, remember, if this Olight, if it gets bumped on here and gets pushed to the on position, it is going to remain constant on, whereas on the Streamlight with its tail cap, there's actually a larger kind of hedged in button that you have to push down. So good and bad designs there for both lights. However, again, they both should be more than safe enough, and again, using that step down feature to save the battery internals, because it doesn't want to actually damage the internals of the battery and cause, or the battery itself, or the light, the head, all that sort of stuff, and cause long-term permanent damage to the light. So again, it has that step down feature to save the light and yourself from it blowing up on you. Now, when I did the heat test, I left all of the lights on for right at 2 hours. I believe it was exactly 2 hours that I left all 4 lights on. I checked them at the first hour because my camera batteries only last about an hour of constant recording. So after the first hour, I checked them. The Olight was uncomfortably hot. I'm holding the Olight right now to show you guys this. So it's been on this whole time, as you guys can probably tell by the extra light. So the head is hot. Like, it's not, or I should say it is uncomfortably hot. Like, I wouldn't want to just hold my face against it, but it is, you can touch it, you're not going to burn yourself. You can hold it for 5, 10, 15 seconds. And again, it's very hot, but it's not going to burn you. And after an hour, that was about how hot it was, because it had stepped down, I believe at that point, down to like 760 lumens. And so it had a pretty constant, pretty flat heat trajectory. So again, for whatever internal temperatures that it's sensing that it wants to be at, that's what it's going to do to kind of make sure that that is as hot as it gets. Now, the Streamlight here has been on for like 5.5 minutes, 6 minutes at this point, and it is barely warm. So, but again, after about an hour, both lights were very hot. So again, while this is a extremely high performance light, it is going to burn out faster, or it's going to have that step down much faster, because again, it is going to be generating a lot more heat because it starts at literally double the performance of the Streamlight in terms of total light output. Now, Odin could, this is going to be the thing that I am going to hammer Odin on the most for this, is they could have made more heat vents on the light itself, because there's a lot of room on here. They could make the head itself a little bigger just to increase surface area, or they could do what is on the Streamlight and add some of these ribbings and these vents, because these will functionally increase the surface area, therefore increase that surface to air transition of heat, therefore cooling down faster, because again, these are both passively cooled lights. There's no active cooling system in them. The only thing that cools them down is them modulating their own power output. So again, the Streamlight's warming up now. It's definitely getting to the warm/hot phase of it. And the Odin has been very, very constant. It's just very hot. If I had to name a temperature, I don't know what the temperatures are, but again, it's uncomfortably hot, but not that uncomfortable, if I had to say. So we don't really need to leave these guys on for all that much longer. It was just kind of to demonstrate to you guys. But again, in the actual 2 hour long meltdown period, I did not have any issues with them whatsoever. And then I do want to say on top of that, so for my testing cycle, I took all the lights out. a couple times at night before doing the meltdown, did the meltdown, then did the drop test, so the 2 drops by themselves and the 2 drops on the guns. So again, that was post meltdown is what I'm trying to say. So I didn't do the meltdown at the end and then notice any sort of light degradation or anything like that. They both recharged, all 4 lights recharged fully, and when I took them back out to the range, they were still as bright as ever. And something I do want to add on top of this at the end is that throughout the heat test, the Olight, except for a very small window when they were both at around 1,000 lumens, something I do want to kind of add on to this, because this is important, is that the Olight Odin, because of its much larger battery cell, 5,000 milliamp hours versus 2,600 milliamp hours, doesn't quite equate to double, because that's not it's not perfectly efficient like that. But the Olight, except for a very small window when they were both at 1,000 lumens before the Streamlight stepped down again, the Olight basically always has quite a bit more light. And at the 1 hour mark, it was much brighter than the Streamlight, and at the 2 hour mark, it was even more bright. A feature that I haven't mentioned on it yet is that the Odin also has a low battery mode, and I forgot to mention this earlier, but if it's below 20%, I want to say, and you push the pressure pad or you push the tail cap itself to get that light, the light itself is actually going to vibrate, and it has like some sort of vibration piece up here in the top or something like that, or in the tail cap, that actually tells you that, hey, you're at 20% or less. So while the light might appear really bright, you're going to index that, turn it on, and it's going to beep at you. You know that you need to start charging that battery. And again, one of the recurring themes that we're going to see when we compare these 2 lights is that, yes, the Odin does cost more money, but in almost every way it has either additional or better features. Now, of course, I could just keep rambling on and giving you guys my thoughts and opinions and different things about this light and talking about different features and such, but there's an old adage called show, don't tell. So now we're going to go ahead and just skip to the range, to a bunch of different light tests, though I do want to say, again, like I mentioned in the beginning, all footage that you see through a camera is much worse than it is in real life. So on the low end, like the real life footage is like 20% better, and in some cases the true light output is like double or triple. Again, we're dealing with a camera, editing equipment, YouTube compression, all that sort of fun stuff in between what I'm seeing versus what you're seeing. So just remember that even though some of these performances might not look as good on camera, you can add at least 20 to 50% on all of them. Just know that going into the next footage that you're going to see. So let's go ahead and just hop to it. Now, when it comes to indoor shooting, both the Streamlight HLX and the Olight Odin are going to be more than enough. So in terms of real performance, they are going to be basically identical. In this large room, which is an 18 by 20, so it's a fairly large room, using both of them as umbrella lights, they work very well to illuminate everything in the room. Again, it looks better in person than on camera. Though again, even with the footage, you are going to notice that the Olight, with its double light output, does illuminate basically everything like it's broad daylight. Alrighty, so we're going to start off here. This is going to be the close range test, which is going to be inside of like 35 yards. We have 2 targets at 35 yards, and then a couple of targets up close. So this is just for starters. We're going to start it with the Surefire G2X, which is a pretty good round-the-house kind of home defense sort of light. Puts out only 600 lumens, about 9,000 candela. As you can see, we have a target 10 yards away. Illuminates that really good. We also have 2 targets 35 yards away. If we center the beam on the left target and right target, we still get some pretty decent illumination on both, even at 35 yards. And I don't know if you guys can tell, but there's about a target about 10 yards away from our center target, which is not being done a very good job of illumination. So if there were a second target hiding behind the truck over there, I would not have a very good idea that it was there using this light. Now this is just a 600 lumen kind of baseline light. We'll go ahead and try out a couple more now. This is a tiny handgun light. This is the Olight Balder Mini. So as you can see up close, good illumination on both of the 35 yard targets, no matter which one that I'm aiming at. And actually probably about the same as the G2X on our close 10 yard target that's off to the side as well. Again, also 600 lumens. Inside of 50 yards, this is actually pretty decent. So stepping it up, this is the LAPGW XL. They're their slide rail light. As you can see, this is an 800 lumen, has a much hotter hotspot really punches out to those 35-yard targets great, but because of that really tight hotspot, it does not do a great job of illuminating either one of these close targets when I'm pointed directly at one. If I put it in between, you can see both just fine, but if I'm pointing directly at one or the other one kind of disappears. Alright, so starting off, we're going to have the Streamlight, the Protac HLX rail mount version, 1000 lumens, 27,000 candela. So right off the bat, much hotter hotspot, excellent visibility on whatever it is aimed at. But again, because of that more tight beam pattern, up close, we kind of lose a lot, especially if you look on this one on the right, although it's kind of affected by the suppressor, so if I tilt it down, you can see the other target, but definitely not very clearly. And at 35 yards, if you aim in between, you can highlight both very well, but one or the other, you definitely are losing a little bit. And just for redundancy's sake, here is another Protac HLX. Again, very similar. Very hot beam pattern, does not illuminate both targets at 35 yards or really give us much illumination on our secondary target up close. So if we aim at the secondary, we kind of lose the other three, and if we aim at this one here, well, we can see definitely the ones that are in line with each other, a little bit of that one and not much of that one. Alrighty, now we have our first Olight Odin. These were both sent out to me by Olight, of course, but now let's go ahead and check this guy out. So, immense beam pattern, as you can tell, still has about the same candela, 25,000 candela, but just an immense wall of light. Even, it gives you great visibility on both the 35-yard targets. Depending if you're centered on one or the other, you still get great visibility on both. Definitely just an immense amount of light. Still not giving us amazing visual on both of the close range lights, but definitely better than the other. So it doesn't have a huge amount of spill, but it does definitely have a huge hotspot, which is quite nice, especially as you get out past 20, 25, 30 yards. Alright, and this is Olight Odin number 2. So once again, we get a huge, immense beam pattern. And again, at 35 yards, you can illuminate both targets with one beam pattern, which is awesome. You get great definition on both. You still don't get a ton of spill on our secondary target, so that one there can still be kind of hard to see up close. So if we're zeroed in on this guy and not paying attention, this one here is going to be mostly invisible to us. But again, a huge wall of light. So beyond 25, 30 yards, you are really going to get some really good stuff. So now we're going to repeat this test, but now this is a car test. So currently with our naked eyes, we can't see anything. All we can see is those headlights. Looking back at this is my 2016 Ford Focus ST with new headlights in it. The right fog light is out, but oh well. So, Olight Balder Mini. It does punch through to both targets behind the car, which is good. Not very well though. This is very little light, and I can't really get any definition on either the driver or passenger seat. So this is not enough light really to punch through car headlights. Now up to the LAPG WXL, their slide rail mount, 800 lumens. This definitely is enough to punch through both targets on the left and right at about 35 yards. And I actually do get pretty decent definition on the passenger. Not great on the driver's side just because there's a bunch of stuff in the way, but this is actually starting to be enough light to really cut through at, again, about 20-25 yards. Alrighty, so now we have the Streamlight Protac HLX 1000 lumens, and this is more than enough to see both the driver and passenger and even some of the back seats as well, and give us lots of definition, lots of detail, even looking through the optic right now. So we do have more than enough light to punch through at this distance. Let's try the Olight Odin. Alright, so Streamlight number 2. So again, more than enough light to punch through both the driver and passenger and to see the targets at 35 yards. No problem whatsoever. Again, 1000 lumens. Alrighty, now for the Olight number 1. Now, 2000 lumens, this still does a great job. This does a much better job of punching through. So I do not need to have it centered on the passenger or driver side. Even if I have it over here on this, the target on the left, I can still see the passenger quite clearly. And I go to the target on the right, I can see the driver and passenger. So that extra area of hotness definitely matters quite a bit when you're trying to punch through a light like this. Like, everything's invisible currently, I cannot see it perfectly black. And then this illuminates all targets and driver and passenger and gives me enough spill. If I have to focus on one, I can still see one or two other targets at the same time. Alright, just for redundancy, Olight number 2. And again, very similar. I get tons of detail on basically all the targets, almost no matter where I have the light. If I put it centered on the far right target, I can't see the left one very well, though I can still see it. And the driver and passenger remain very well illuminated almost no matter where I have the light focused. So again, inside of this 25-30 yards, the extra lumens really do matter. That huge hot zone is quite nice for illuminating multiple targets up close. All right, so now this is going to be the tinted windows test. Again, close range, we're at about 5 yards or so. This is Olight Balder Mini, which is a micro compact. These rear windows are very heavily tinted. I get good pass through, of course, on the driver's side, but on the rear, it's definitely a lot harder to see through, and the light kind of just dies once it gets in the windows. All right, then LAPG light. Actually get a lot of light coming back at me, funnily enough. You do get more pass through into the rear sections of the car for whatever reason. If somebody was back there or something was back there that you didn't want to be back there, you could tell. All right, then the Streamlight Protac HLX. Really good visibility, really punches through. You do still get a lot of light back in the face as well, reflecting off of the actual car itself. But again, you do get plenty of light into the car. You can tell what's going on in there. All right, then last up, of course, we have the Olight Odin, 2000 lumens up close. Now the thing that I like, again, more about this light than some of the other lights is when I put it into the back windows, I see some into the rear, some into the front. So basically, no matter where I put the light, I'm getting a lot more visual information than I am with the other lights. So that is something that I really do like about it. And yes, of course, it is still reflecting a lot of light back, but it is definitely punching through more than enough. So if you guys can see that light at the end of the proverbial tunnel, that is about 100 yards away. So here, starting out, it's going to be the Olight Balder Mini. You can see it definitely does not punch out to the light. Maybe makes it about 50 yards and then starts to drop off pretty fast. Does good illumination up close though, for sure. Moving up to the LAPG weapon light. Much more punch. Definitely gets out there even farther than really the camera can tell. It does look better to the naked eye than it does in the camera for sure. But again, good spill, not as much spill as the Balder Mini, but that's kind of a short range light, but definitely does punch out a little further. Next up, we are going to go with the Streamlight Protac HLX, which really punches out there. It actually does some illumination through the light at 100 yards. I know it's really hard to tell on camera, but that does do a really good job. Great spill, not an insane amount of spill, but it does give you a lot of information all the way out to 50, 70 yards in a very, very wide cone. And again, that hot center point does give you some pretty good intel even 100 yards underneath a light. All right, so last light, this is of course going to be the Odin. Boom. Now, you guys can probably tell this on camera, but basically everything gets touched by light. Everything that it looks at, there's more spill up close, and because that center beam is so much larger, it really just punches through and even illuminates, out to 100 yards and beyond with some ambient light. So, excellent job, in my opinion, of the Odin. And again, we are talking about value, so it compared to the Streamlight, they're both very, very close in terms of value. See, very, very easy to do. Even just standing offhand at 100 yards. It illuminates the target very well. I can see it moving, I can see it reacting when I shoot it, all that sort of fun stuff. So the Streamlight, that is the Streamlight Protac HL rail mount. All right. So now again, of course, depending on your ammunition, this is throwing off a lot of smoke. The suppressor's warm, but not super hot. We have one more Odin to try out because they actually sent me 2 Odins, so we're going to use them back to back just to make sure that they're both up to snuff. Both have been, of course, fully charged. Alright, so as you can see on there, I kind of had to move around after every shot. Not shooting suppressed with just cheap ammo just puts out huge clouds of smoke. So I have to move around to see the target, though again, from whatever position that I'm in, I can still see the target very well, even at 100 yards with just a flashlight. So I hope that footage was useful to you guys. I hope you guys got something out of that. And again, remember, it's being rendered through my camera to my SD card onto my computer, rendered and then compressed onto YouTube. So it looks a lot better in person than it does through video, and I want you guys to understand that. But again, in terms of value, these lights are actually very, very similar. You have the Olight for $100 to $130, again, using the BSL26, which is the recommended power source. That's what I recommend you buy if you're going to pick up one of these lights. You can get the full 1000 lumens, and it is the customized power cell for this, whereas the Olight Odin costs about $160 and comes with everything that you need just right out of the box. It's going to run, but again, it's going to cost you anywhere from like $50 to $30 more. So if I had to pick and say which one of these lights is better, I would of course say the Olight Odin. In my testing, the only drawback that it really has is that it does get hotter faster, but double the light output and a slightly slimmer, sleeker looking design that just is not as functional when it comes to actually cooling the light down. That's its really only drawback. The mount is not only much better at actually holding the light to the gun, but it's also much more flexible. You can add 2 lights onto it if you really wanted to for whatever reason. You can flip it around any which way. You have 2 different places to lock into the light in 2 different directions, so essentially 4 different mounting options in a single mount. The tail cap I have not had any issues with. But again, you might be somebody who has an issue with the tail cap and it just doesn't work out for your specific use case scenario. So that can be a drawback for you. Though again, in my anecdotal testing, again, with only a sample size of 2, they've worked out perfectly. Now, if you were going to ask me, hey John, what is the best light that I can get for $100? Well, I would probably say the Streamlight Protac HLX, because you can find these on a good sale or on eBay for like 90 to 100 bucks. And this is probably the best, you know, high quality name brand weapon light with I believe they come with a lifetime warranty and all that sort of fun stuff that you can get for around 100 bucks. So it probably is one of the highest value lights on the market. Again, I've had some quirkiness with the tail cap, although I also had some quirkiness just with my own interface with the Odin tail cap as well. The mount isn't as good, the light's not quite as bright, though it does punch out, though again, most of the time you're more worried about that up close light. More often than not, you probably want it more bright inside of 100 yards than past 100 yards, so I would say the Odin is definitely a lot more usable light, and it does give you, again, double or more information just because of how much spill and how much it illuminates everything around you. But if you're going to say, hey, what's the best light for under $200? Then I can really only say the Olight Odin, as it's really the only other light that I've tried in that price range, and again, the features on it are pretty crazy for the money. There are, of course, other lights, though, as I mentioned in the beginning, I don't really have a lot of experience with them, or really much at all, so not really going to talk about them all that much. So I'm not going to speculate on which one could be better, could not be better, could be more durable. If we're going purely off of my testing, they're both perfectly durable, and I haven't had any issues whatsoever, though again, there's a lot more to it than just my personal anecdotal evidence that could be 2 cherry-picked pieces that I got from Olight, although the 2 Streamlights I did, of course, purchase with my own money from 2 different sources. So guys, at the end of the day, I hope I was able to give you guys at least some good information, show you guys some good footage through my very simplistic testing. Again, since I've owned these lights for a couple months now, they've always been on a gun, they've always been getting tested. 4,000 to 5,000 rounds combined between all 4 lights, multiple drops, a burn down session where I tried to get them to melt down and all they did was get hot, as they should, and then they stepped down appropriately. Both lights will definitely work. Again, if you're on more of a budget, you only have 100 bucks to spend on a weapon light, which for a lot of people is a lot of money to spend on a weapon light, considering this upper receiver is like 280 bucks and this upper receiver is probably around the same price point. So for a lot of us more budget-minded people, 100 bucks on a light seems like a lot of money. Though, again, I think the Streamlights are definitely a good investment for me personally, as I did pay my own money for them, and I think that they work great, especially for the money. The tail caps aren't perfect, the mount's not perfect. Light is really good, again, 1000 lumens, but you need to get the BSL26 or their specific battery for this light that allows it to get the most power out of it. The Olight Odin, though, if you have a little bit more money to spend and you don't mind the other downsides of owning an Olight, you know, just some of the stuff that we mentioned in the beginning, then yeah, it's a great light. I have not had any issues with it whatsoever, and that's all I can really say about it. I know that a lot of people complain about them online, but a lot of those people, again, have never used them. So from my very limited testing, or well, I shouldn't say super limited, but I've probably done more testing than most people do on their Olights. But again, in my testing with my specific scenario, with, you know, my testing, all that sort of fun stuff, both lights have passed with flying colors, and I don't see any reason not to pick up either of these if you're in the budget and the market for one of these sorts of lights. Again, they both have downsides. The Olight has just downsides that are not really all about the light itself, kind of, unfortunately. So that's about it for the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Again, if you want to help out me personally, you can always like, share, and subscribe. Comment something snarky down below about Olights. You can check out my AR500 steel targets, which you will have seen quite a bit of in this video. On top of that, subscribe star to get one of these lights sent out to you, of course, because I am going to be giving away one of the Odins to one of my subscribe star guys, because that way there, when I get something in for free from a company, I can kind of give something back to you guys who actually watch and support me and send that off to you guys. So thanks once again for watching, guys. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace off. And blind through the smoke there. That far target kind of disappears after the first round just because of how much smoke's coming out. So the one thing about this Odin is that it does tend to reflect all that light on all the smoke coming around. Has it? Well, a lot of gas back in my face there.